Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker, and thanks for listening to Shout Out from the Pit. Just a few admin notes before we launch into our show. First, thanks for the great feedback. As always, please keep sending suggestions on how we can improve your show. Everybody has a story, and Redbeard and I want to encourage folks by sharing your experience, strength, and hope, and letting folks know that they are not alone. It's really simple. Just tell us what your challenge was and how you overcame it. That's simple, and what you do to maintain. Check out shoutoutfromthepit.com and briefly share your story under our contact tab. Redbeard or I will reach out to you for a chat and talk about doing a show. Remember just to give us your first name and what state or country you're from. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Merchandise and branding. We're asked about promos, shirts, merch, and though it all sounds awesome, we don't have a budget yet to go that direction. So if you have graphic skills and merchandise opportunities that are cheap, I mean really cheap, like maybe even free, and of course made in America, hit us up on shoutoutfromthepit.com. The buck bucket is up. Hit the donation link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and help us update our ancient equipment and grow the show. A buck here and a buck there, and pretty soon we've got a better quality show and opportunities to bring Shout Out from the Pit to a city near you. Literally. More on this in the future. And speaking of promos and donations, huge shout out to a donor that insist on remaining anonymous for our first window stickers. They're really cool, and we're super grateful to you for supporting the show. Now I just got to figure out how to get those stickers into your hands. So be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with a friend. You'll get Diane's missives. They're full of awesome tools and encouragement and episodes designed to edutain as you trudge the road to happy destiny. Okay, so here's what to expect from this show. Samantha. Wow. Just wow. What a powerful story and what a powerful woman. Not only did she have to wrestle with the ism and alcoholism and then deal with the stuff that's hidden behind the ism, she had to face a challenge no parent should have to face. And she did it sober. You hear us speak of toolbox quite often. Well, you might want to break out a pen for this episode. And now, on with the show.
Small.
It is?
I guess.
It looks good. Yeah, you should keep that with you. It looks good.
You're going to do great.
All right. Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker coming at you raw and uncensored. And as always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where the host sucks, but the guests are awesome. I'm the host, and Redbeard, the brains behind the scenes, is my friend, partner, and producer. So joining us today is, or I guess it'd be R to be grammatically correct, our Team BS, that's Bob and Shannon. Team Jeremy, which is Jeremy and Sherry. And then, of course, our guest for today is Samantha, and the crowd screams. All right, so everybody give a shout out. I've been looking forward to this, so just so you know. All right, as always, the old Rucker's got to do an icebreaker, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So before we get started, do you know what is the world's... Hold on a sec. I just see you staring at me and just cracks me up. Danny's on the set too, man. He's like he really wants to know where this is going. You see that face? He's like, where do you go with this icebreaker, Dad? Okay, cool. All right, so do you know what the world's oldest recorded name and what it was known or what it was recorded for? So here's where I go. Here's where I'm going. According to Guinness's World Records and History.com, the earliest individual whose name was recorded on a surviving tablet is Cusham, a government official in the ancient Mesopotamian city of Uruk, near present-day Samarwa, Iraq. I'm tearing all that up, so forgive me. In 3000 BC, that's about 5,000 years ago. The tablet was written in cuneiform, a Sumerian script that evolved from pictographs, which are a variety of shapes representing words, sounds, and syllables. And what was the reason that Cusham signed off for? a request for 134,000 liters, that's 35,000 gallons of beer. The first known recording. Isn't that crazy? All right, so
and so it began.
And so it began, right? Some of these little trivia things that come up with are kind of cool. All right, so Samantha is our guest today, and I'm really, like I said, I've been looking forward to this. You know, I met you when you came out and did a show with Sherry and in Team Jeremy. So I've gotten to know you through that. Yeah. I didn't know that we also had some common folks in our circles, that you're a runner. Okay, yeah. I learned a little bit about that before, but learned more in this pre-show hangout with you and Shannon. And I didn't realize that you also, I knew you were in the medical profession, but I didn't know that you actually, some of the things we talked about yesterday. So some of your contributions to the recovery world. So you are actively engaged. So enough of me. Tell me about yourself. Who's Samantha today? Before we get into where you came from, just give us a Reader's Digest snapshot. Top of the dome, go, boom.
Oh, well, gosh, that's such a loaded question. Who am I today? Well, I'm constantly evolving. So I really discovering who I am. And it feels a lot more like some of the deeper parts of me that I'm exploring. It's like everything leading up to this last year seems to have been like all the piling on of like life and relationships and facades, masks, experiences, all of that. And it led up to, this practice now of taking a harder look at my sobriety and my life, my purpose, the things that I do in my life, and learning to subtract all of what was in my past, a lot of subtraction, where I had always thought that to get to where I'm going, you just had to keep adding and piling on, different things that you learn how to do, or different paths that you take, or different things that you've learned, and all of this. And what I'm learning really is that this simple program is, for me, about a lot more subtraction, to try to remove some of those things that I thought were me for so long. Because that's kind of where I'm at now, is I don't know who really that I am. I'm discovering who I am. And, maybe at my age, I should feel like I'm more in tune with who I am, but I'm not, to be honest. I'm not. And, but I'm quickly learning as I subtract things out of my life. I'm left with, what's left. I'm left with what's left. I'm left with the parts of me that are put through the fire, and those little edges that are burned off. And for a long time, I think I was doing those things. I was trying to be in charge of my own life, and trying to steer my own ship and find my own course. And it oftentimes, it's led me to a lot of rough places. And then in doing so, I had to, when I got sober 12 years ago, the slate was sort of wiped clean. And through those 12 years, I've learned a lot, but I think that for me, I understand more now than ever, if you don't stay in the midst of preserving the program, preserving your recovery, and continually to learn through the process, that you'll come to a place where you feel like, okay, I've kind of got this. I'm good, and that those old parts of me sort of take over again, and think that I don't really need AA, or I don't really need a sponsor, or, I don't really need to do this daily reflection every day. I think I'm good. I think I've got it okay. And I got to where I just kind of started coasting. And then, a few years ago, it all kind of blew up when Brittani passed away. from this disease, from a drug overdose.
So we're going to go back to go forward. So we got a guy, I don't think we really have an idea who you are today. And of course, we don't want to break your anonymity, but I see you as actively engaged in a lot of positive things. If I didn't know you and have gotten to know you since I was introduced to you through Team Jeremy, I would just see you on the street or something and go, hey, there's a well-to-do professional right there. You're sharp. You have a genuine smile, so you had used the word mask in this little dialogue you gave us a little bit earlier. I think that's a key word for the human race, right?
Yeah.
Because we're only going to see what you let us see.
Right.
And if you show a smile, then I'm going to think, well, you're a happy person. If you're not smiling, I'm going to think maybe I better get out your way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go backwards to go forward. Tell us about, I don't know, little Sam. What was it like growing up?
Oh, well, little Sam, I was the oldest of three and I had two brothers. We grew up like, we seemed to be like the normal family of five. Grew up in a rural town in Arkansas, but we traveled around a little bit with my dad's work. But my dad was like really a workaholic. My mom, she was really a tomboy. So I had two brothers, a workaholic dad and a tomboy mom. So when, I was like, I didn't really learn like how to like be a woman, how to, as I was growing up. But like when we were kids, my mom was rugged. I mean, she would take us to like go chop wood. I mean, that was our entertainment. I mean, like, I think, and she was the alcoholic. And so she, there were the times when things weren't good. They were not good. You just didn't know what you were, coming home to. So I think that I remember as a child, like being very guarded and emotional, like, and scared a lot because I think that it, like what I know now growing up and kind of having conversations with my mother, I think she just was doing the best she could, but she just didn't know how to nurture. She just wasn't, rub some dirt on it, just you'll be fine kind of thing. And let me rub some dirt on it. I mean, or whatever, but, so I mean, that's how, when we grew up, there's just everything seemed to be like, that's how, just was like normal. And then when I got to the teenage years, that's when things kind of blew up for them. They got divorced. And so it was kind of a time where, I was a teenager in high school trying to find my way. And, it was, when you don't have somebody, a woman, a mom, a motherly figure, like showing you the value of who you are as a woman, you learn those from places like, I don't know, Madonna, 16 magazine. I mean, like you learn that stuff from the people and the things around you. I mean, thank God for MTV. I mean, my God, what would we have done fashion before that? I mean, like, really.
Right.
Yeah. So it was, it was probably not the best, but I mean, it was not a big deal. Everybody was, it seems like the beginning of the times when, parents were splitting up and like kids were just kind of on their own and just doing their thing. And that's where my drinking kind of picked up. And,
was that latchkey kid syndrome?
Not really latchkey, because my mom, she didn't work. She was at home, but she drank a lot. And so when they did divorce and we were teenagers, she moved away and we lived with my dad for a little while. And then I begged her because I was like, too much testosterone in that house. I was like, please, Mom, I want, please just take me back to Arkansas. We were in California. So take me back to Arkansas. So I finally somehow talked her into it. She had gotten sober. And while she had gotten sober, she did not call herself an alcoholic. She was just, not drinking. Got home. She didn't really have a whole lot of interest in raising kids. Like she would tell me, like, I don't have any interest in raising you. If you can handle it and you can stay here. And if you're on your own, if I'm not here, whatever, like, if that's how you want to do this, then we'll do it. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I just want to go back to what's familiar. And that was familiar. These other crazy people in California, they weren't familiar to me. It was like the ways and all of that. It just wasn't, I wanted to go. I think from early on, I hated change. And I always, as crazy and messed up as it would be, something familiar is always what I would go back to, even if it was dangerous or bad for me. I probably knew going in that this might not go well. It might not end well, but we were like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. I'll do whatever. So when we got here, she decided she wanted her second career to be a truck driver. And she was like in her 40s. She was in her late 40s, almost 50. And she decided, I'm going to be a truck driver. And I was like, okay.
She liked Copenhagen too?
No, she did. She didn't. No, there was that. No, all of that stuff was disgusting to her. But yeah, she just loved to drive. She wanted to be a truck driver. She loved to drive, and she would drive us all over places when we were kids. She'd take us to California and take us on trips. But so she decided that's what she's going to do. And I mean, like as a kid, she would like lay down, here's the electric bill money, go pay it at the drugstore. I mean, like this is, back in the 80s. And, don't get pregnant, don't go to jail. And, those were the two main guardrails I had at the end of high school. Yeah, I'm super proud of that. Did neither. So that's how I ended up my high school career. And so it was probably no wonder that I was, thinking, okay, if I had a boyfriend in high school, like the next logical step to me was like get married and go have a family and do this, see if we can do this right.
So how old were you when you came back to Arkansas? So this was all in high school?
Yes. I was 16 years old when I came back to Arkansas.
And you didn't see truck driving in your future?
I did not. And she'd asked me, she's like, do you want to go with me? I was like, hell no. No, I'm catching up with what Madonna's doing and what MTV's got going on. And like, when's the next party? What's happening? And a lot of them were at my house because, I had zero, guardians at home. So, but.
You finished high school fine then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to do when you got out of school?
I'll tell you what I wanted to do, and I started doing was psychology. I wanted to work with the craziest of like I was looking for in a mental hospital. Like little did I know that I never wound up there, but I ended up being more like a client than the doctor. So, but that's where I started was psychology. That's what I was interested in from the get-go for a long time. Yeah.
Did you?
Nope, did not.
No degrees or nothing?
Got married and had kids.
Oh, okay.
And then, so that life, that kind of just leads you to you're young, you're in your 20s. And so, you have a kid and then, it's hard, growing up. He went into the military, went into the Air Force, and we had 2 children. I mean, quickly when we got back to the States, I was like, I think I may have made a mistake here. You're just young. And I was had zero discipline to stick something out. And, I just don't think when we walked down that aisle, I knew in the back of my mind that I was like, I literally was giving myself a way out thinking that if this doesn't work out, I'll just get a divorce. I didn't have those deep set values that today I wish I had. I just didn't. And that's it. So I just didn't have those.
I have a question. You've talked a lot about your mom. What happened with your dad and what's your relationship with him today?
Oh, it's great. Dad was, he worked really hard. I mean, and I was always like daddy's little girl, but I was pretty hell bent on what I wanted to do. And I had my 2 younger brothers too. I mean, they stayed with dad and, I think probably, I was 18. I could take care of myself. The decision to go with mom and do that, he was not on board with that. But it wasn't like one of those things where he felt like worried enough or, intuitive enough to go, okay, I need to pull her out of this situation. I made it all work. I mean, I was very good at like, I'm great, Dad. I'm great. But, he's a wonderful man. He's a great dad, and he's a huge supporter. He was very hard on us growing up, but I always felt like as a kid, you always kind of feel like that you want them to be proud of you. And I felt like I probably didn't do a whole lot to make him proud. But, he always encouraged me, and always, he did, you should go to school, you should go to college, you should, all the things I should do. And I didn't do many of those. And so I felt like I probably didn't quite live up to the daughter that he probably was hoping for, but it wasn't that he was disappointed in me. And I didn't feel that from him at all. It was just, there was the gap that I put on our relationship, probably because I felt like I probably didn't quite live up to what I felt like he probably really would have been proud of, didn't finish college and got married, and he was like really against that. I mean, it's like, parents, we have the foresight. We know what's going to happen down the road, but, and now that we've been parents, so I've seen this, I've done and seen the same thing, but I was like, oh no, Daddy, I got this. I'm good. I'll make this work. Trust me. And I was really good at convincing. Yeah. Just really good at convincing him. And I'm sure he probably just didn't believe me, but he was like, okay, she's.
Well, how long were you married?
7 years.
7 years. Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't quite 7 years. And then jumped into their, had 2 children, jumped into the very next relationship. I was like, again, finding these things out as I look back, not my best moments, but, and I've cared about these husbands or whatever, but I'm caring about them. It's like, I don't want to make it sound like I was just like, okay, next. Cause it wasn't like that, but it was on me because I felt like I needed a relationship for me to be whole.
Okay. So you were married 7 years. Mm-hmm. After that divorce, how long before you were into another relationship?
7 days. Not long. It was like one lives right into the other.
So well, let's jump ahead and go back.
Okay.
Why do you think that is?
So today, jumping ahead today, that marriage lasted 28 years. We'll jump ahead this far, and I can tell you that after doing a much more thorough 4th step in the sex relations department, I have discovered that it was always some sort of relationship that I looked to be validated. And it came from relationships and, sexual relationships, boyfriends, whatever, in high school. I mean, it was like always, it wasn't about the attention that it wasn't attention seeking. It was like validation seeking. Like there was something about that. If you chose me, if you thought that I was something special or pretty or whatever. I mean, like it felt like, looking back now, it feels like I was just constantly connecting the next to the next to the next, trying to improve upon myself, improve upon or help or change that person to suit something I felt like I must have needed.
Wow. Okay. So we'll go back. And so you when you got out of when you ended the first marriage,
mm-hmm.
the second relationship, did that become a marriage?
Yeah, it did.
That's when you were in 28 years.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And we were together, I think it was like right around the 14-year mark or so when I got sober. And so, and he, he was the one that took me to rehab. So, and I was not a fan. Just say I was not a fan.
Can I ask, so how did that end up coming about in that relationship? What brought that trip to rehab? What brought that to a head?
Many, like my drinking, like it was like we talk about the progression of the disease. It progressed quickly. And it was, it did start out with like those weekend warrior kind of like, it's Friday, Saturday night, drink, party, have fun, whatever. And then works, Monday through Friday or whatever. And then party weekend. And it just, for me, I just kept adding days, adding drinks, adding days, adding drinks, going longer, and then it was like, it was a train you couldn't stop.
I'm just curious. So this is in the, you drank in before then, but it wasn't until your second
30. Yeah, it's like probably in my 30s that really it picked up. Yeah, up. It really started picking up. He drank, but I mean, like he could walk away from, an evening going out and having drinks and, it was time to go home. But me, no. I'm like, one more, two more, three more. And then, it's just part of that story that, is the shameful part of my story of having to be poured into a vehicle on a much regular basis, or, always the one that said, I would take a drink so I wouldn't have to be the designated driver. I mean, like it got to where it wasn't just the casual drinking. It was a negotiation. I was negotiating constantly with how I could make sure I got what I wanted in drinking and doing what I wanted, partying, whatever. And that he was always the driver. He was always had to be the responsible one. While I say that, I never felt like I could speak up for myself or have my own place in my marriage. I really put myself in that position. I really allowed the addiction, the alcoholism, and I'm just being completely transparent and authentic here, that I put myself in that position. Nobody else did. And so I never want to come across as thinking that it was because these men were like this or weren't like this or didn't. It was all me. I knew what I was working with my husband, and I used, the addiction for me was what I thought about, and I was selfish and self-centered, and I drank every chance I could get, and I tried to do it as best I could without getting caught. It wasn't like I just completely threw caution to the wind. I was really trying to, be as, I don't know. I was really trying to not be so sloppy, but you get that one in you and you'd be like, oh, then it was on. So yeah, it all ended up being, just really bad. Every night got to be really bad. We'd have conversations about it and I would say, I'm gonna do better. I'll do better. And I just wouldn't. I tried really hard to do better. And I would celebrate, a few days of not drinking with drinks. It just, I would run and, thinking that if I was athletic enough, it wouldn't affect me so much. I wouldn't be, I started to, in my head, the visual in my head of the alcoholic was a homeless person who was drinking under the bridge over a fire burning barrel out of a brown paper bag. And I thought, well, if I ever get there, then I'll know it wasn't the homelessness maybe or sleeping under the bridge part if I ever get there, that'll probably be an indicator that I have a problem. I had convinced myself that as long as I didn't have anything like legal issues or, anything physically, outwardly happen, then I would be okay. But on the inside, I was crushed on the inside. I was tormented. I was battling every day. And I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
You said tormented. What?
But just like, it's like waking up every morning and feeling like, oh God, what did I do last night? Or, oh God, I did it again. Oh God, did I say something last night that hurt somebody or did I, and then sure enough, time after time, there'd be like, hey, Mom, did you know you did, I'm like, oh my God. And, and you'd think after so many times of that, just horrendous, embarrassingly, awkward, crazy, stupid stuff that, you hear about the next day, that would be enough to be like, you know what, enough is enough. But not me. I was like, okay, let's see if we can figure out how to do this different. Let's see, like, kids, do y'all have a friend you can go spend the night with? I mean, like, is there, like, it was just, it really got ridiculous. And I didn't ever see it. I mean, I can see it now. I couldn't see it then.
Did you see some commonalities between yourself and your mom?
The commonality I saw was that I was more social. My mother was like this, she kind of, when she drank, it was like, she was at home with, she would, like, when we got off the bus, be like that long walk up the driveway, be like, okay, who we getting? Is it happy mom, sad mom, mad mom? What are we doing? And I could tell by the way she was hanging off the balcony what we were going to get, And for me, I was like, literally, I was always happy. And like, yes, you can do whatever you want. Like, I was just, yes, mom. And so, I'm probably pretty sure that at some point my kids, understood that. And they, they took advantage of that. They were like, yeah, they're there. And everything I could do to try to make my drinking acceptable by anybody and everybody, including myself, I would try to do.
So you just made a comment about your kids saying, hey, mom, you did this or you did that. So did your kids ever try to, I know you said your husband encouraged you to change or, stop drinking, but did your kids try to?
I think probably, so the two older kids, they were at their dad's and then they were at my house. So they would go back and forth. So, and they were at their dad's on the weekend or on the weekend part of that. So, except for like 1 weekend a month, they'd be at home. So, my youngest probably got the most of that. But I think when it got bad enough, she was in like some preteen years. And so I think she was kind of preoccupied with that. It was more like the eye rolls. It wasn't like the sit down and, you know what I mean? Like if I didn't start having some really good conversations with my children in that era, in that time, because I didn't know how to. And it wasn't until I got sober that I learned how to have a healthy conversation with what would be now young adult kids. Like by the time I got sober, my youngest was like 14 years old. And so she was, already on that teenage roller coaster.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the funniest thing that you woke up and said, there is no way I did that. Really? No way.
Oh. I don't.
Or most memorable, not so much funny.
Well, I'd have to think on that one.
Okay.
There's so many dumb things I did, but no, I don't know. I'd have to. I did plenty. I did some like, the stuff that I think that I recall are like being buzzed the next morning and taking them to school, and that's the kind of stuff that really just like sticks with me. That I'm just like, God, Sam, I can't believe you did that, and then came home and acted like it wasn't a big deal. You just like how badly we convince ourselves that it's not as bad as like what you think it is. And you're the normal one. And now I'm like, okay, they were all completely accurate in the things that they would say. And it was like, with their friends and stuff, like I was always the one that was going to drink everybody, I was going to be drinking the most and I was going to be the worst. And I was, flying off. And I mean, like, whatever. And probably one time, for my birthday, I had friends that bought like it was a wine glass that was like, I'm not kidding, it was like this huge. Oh, it was huge. It was like this huge. It was like probably 2.5 foot tall, and they had poured like bottles of wine and like here's your like this is Sam's glass of wine, and so. And I just thought it was funny. And I think I remember later John going, did you not see that was sort of a dig? And I was like, I thought it was like a pretty, It was just like,
that was a great
kudos
gift.
to you, Sam. You can, here you go. Kudos to you. There's so much you can drink. And again, you just miss all of that when you're in it. You just justify it, validate it, make it all okay, make it seem normal, make it seem right, make it fit, make it all fit. And I did that with everything in my life, just try to make it fit. And it just, at some point, I'm thankful that I was taken to rehab that day because I did not want to go. And that morning when he took me,
you say that, so I'm just trying to picture in my head. Did you wake up with a hangover and did you get sabotaged into going
No, I was at work. He came and picked me up at work because I was at work and I was drinking. So,
whoa.
Yes. And so, he walks in the door and I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And he's like, grab your purse. And I was like, where are we going? And I'd already, been drinking and I could tell like the look on his face looks very mysterious. I don't think I've seen this one before. And he's like, get your stuff. And I'm like, okay. And I thought, well, he'd been known to whisk me away, from time to time on just an adventure, I guess. And, so we get in the car and he's like, Sam, I am taking you to rehab. And I'm like, what? It's like, I don't need to go to rehab. I'm like, well, and then it's like, I'm realizing that he's being serious. And so then the panic sets in for me and I'm just like, oh my God, immediately it's all about me. It's like, what about the kids? What about my job? I mean, like, I came and picked you up at your job. What do you think? How do you think your job's going? How do you think that was going to end? That's who called me. And I'm like, oh. So, I get in and we get to the house and I'm like, I am in panic mode because I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And, he's in the other room, he's packing a bag and I'm like, okay, well, if this is how it's going to go down, I go straight to the liquor cabinet and I start downing. Like, I'm not a whiskey. I mean, like, I'm like taking whatever is there. And, I'm like, if I'm going in hard. I'm like, I don't want to remember. I'm not going to want to remember what's about to happen to me because I feel like I'm going to be molested. I mean, I don't know what happens in rehab. It's got to be a bad thing. So anyway, he comes around the corner about that time. I'm in my purse and I'm digging out like, I convinced my doctor, of course, that I, was deeply depressed and had, anxiety. So I had the Klonopin and the Xanax and all of that. And I was in my purse and I was like, I thought I'm going to have these on board too. About that time, I've got a handful in my hand. And about that time, he comes up behind me, he smacks my hand. Klonopin goes flying all over the kitchen and I'm down the floor, like trying to gather my pills. And I'm like, and then I literally had this moment where I'm still in action, but I'm like, look at what you're doing. And because I could hear him saying, Sam, look at what you're doing. Oh. And at that time I was like, it was like, I didn't care. I was like, I'm like, sticking them in my mouth. And by the time I get there, I want to jump out the car all the way there. And I'm mad. How dare this be happening? I can get control of this. I can do this. I'll be good. And I literally said those words like a child. I'll be good. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. And something interesting. So he had me talk to a lady that we knew through work, but didn't know her real personally, but knew that she had a lot of years in sobriety and she had about 25 or so years. And out of everybody that ever talked to me that tried to say, do you think maybe you have a problem with alcohol prior to this? I was like, no, I'm good. I don't. And I appreciate your concern. And she called me one day and we were talking and something resonated. And it is true. Like when we talk about an alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, there's something magic in that. There's a magical moment. It's an unspoken, unknown spiritual connection that I believe that's why Bill and Bob, and that's why they had so much success when they would one-on-one with somebody. There was something about her calm tone, her assuredness of who she was that attracted me to that. And he called her and asked her to come and and meet us up there. And I remember that moment, and I remember her sitting next to me, and I remember her holding my hand, and she didn't have to say a word. She never had to even say a word. She kept rubbing my shoulder, and she was like, "It's going to be okay, honey. It's going to be okay. I've been right where you're at." And it could have been all the Klonopin I was picking up off the floor. Could have been the whiskey there, whatever that I was downing before I got there. But there was just, in this moment, I was just like, okay, I've got no choice. I mean, it's like I'm choked up. I'm like, I feel like I can't breathe. And I'm like, kind of a surrender. This surrender that I have no idea where it came from. I didn't ask for it. It was like, it felt like a surrender pressed upon me. And so, did the deal, and like, that was the other terrible, I mean, like, okay, strip search, go through all your clothes, and I'm like, oh, this is not me, and, still not me, and boy, I had a hard time. I'd have to have a roommate. Oh my goodness. And I'm not bougie. I'm not spoiled. None of that. I just could not accept any of those things. And I found that when I got in there, and in a moment of like, having to go to my first AA meeting and say my name and I'm an alcoholic, I remember just crying through the whole thing and thinking, it's like, once I said it, you couldn't take it back. You couldn't unring that bell, and I'd refused. Like, I knew as an alcoholic in my heart, I knew it was in my soul, but I knew that if I said it out loud, that's what would make it true. So I did. And, I started, it's like God opened up the shell in me, and like a little bit, like, some light I don't know if darkness was creeping out or light was creeping in. But there was something that kind of cracked open. And I remember, in a moment on the side of the bed going, all right, God, I honestly don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I made such a mess of my life, but I know that I don't want to keep going like this. I don't want to do this. And they say, I can't do this without you. So I will do whatever. And from that moment, it's like, I spent just a few days there, and then I went to Serenity Park. Back then there was a women's unit. That's now the men's unit, but men were up at the front. Women were in the newer building. And, when I stepped in there, I was like, okay, step 2. I mean, like, this is all happening, and, I walked in, and one of the girls there, she took my book. She had an AA book, a big book. She sat down, and I was going through my intake stuff, and they just asked you questions. And she went through and she highlighted all the places in my book, and we would sit and read the same excerpts of the book every time we would start a class. And that sweet lady who was younger than me, in her 30s, she's gone now. She passed away of this disease, but she started, she gave me the book, and everybody was so nice. There was only a handful of us in there at the time, and we read that book every day. And I remember at one point, a couple of days into it, the lady that was teaching, she was phenomenal. She had a lot of sobriety, and she just told everything like it was. And she was very bold. And she said the statistics show that basically one of you are not going to make it. It was like 5 of us at the time in the class, in the group. She said, statistics show that one of you won't make it. And we all looked around the room. I was like, it ain't gonna be me. I'm going to make it. I mean, like, it's not going to be me. Mm-hmm. And, there was a couple of them that were kind of sliding by, and I thought, it'd be one of them. And, it was sad because like 9 months later, I found out it was this girl who had wrote her name in my book, highlighted, showed me where everything was. Cunning, baffling, powerful is what we say this is. And that took me back. I mean, it scared me. And during all this time too, I was like, okay, I was taking it seriously. I really was. And I had no choice, felt like I had no choice, but it was past I don't have any choice. It was like, I feel different. I start to feel like some weight lifted off of me. And it wasn't because I was doing the thing that everybody wanted me to do. It was, in spite of all that, it was, it was this feeling of freedom, like the first taste of freedom, and also freedom and fear of like what the next day would hold. And, they start teaching you don't have to worry about tomorrow, worry about today. And I got a sponsor through that. They closed Serenity Park at the time that I was in there. So I only got like about 2 weeks of it before they closed the doors. They were, just financially unstable when they closed them. So I was really scared. I thought there's no way I'm going to stay. How am I going to stay sober? I've only been for 2 weeks in here and I don't know what I'm going to do.
You mentioned earlier about mask. You always had to put the mask on. Talk about what it looks like now. You're in rehab away from everybody else. Talk about what your mask look like now.
Yeah. Well, it felt like it was like not having to wear one. It was like that made like the weightless part of not having to wear one, except on visitors' day. 'Cause I thought, okay, I got to be a class act for my family to come in. And, it was, I think, it felt like now I had to perform, like, do they trust that I know that this is really me. This is real. I really want this, but how do I make them believe that I really want this? Because I'd fought so much. And and that's one thing that, we show in our actions over time. We can't gain back trust and all of that all at once. And, but I thought if I could just say the right thing, do the right thing in their presence, they would know it's serious. And so I think probably I wanted to show that I could fix it. I could fix this. I could fix the relationship and all. And, it ended up, he still decided he wanted a divorce, but I was in a place at that time that I was like, we step on the toes of others and they retaliate. Well, I understood that I'd done this. I'd put myself in this position. I think probably at first I was like, what the hell? You wanted me to get sober. Here I'm sober. Now but my sponsor, the program, the people, the fellowship that I was kind of becoming a part of, showed me that, their choices, what they decide or reflect on them. It's not, there's nothing I can do about it. And I still have to stay sober. You want to stay sober for that to get your marriage back, or do you want to stay sober because you want your life? Mm. And I felt like, okay, if I do this, then, it started to come around. And so we ended up seeing each other and getting back together and getting married. And I think all this fast forward to now, I can look back and go, what happened there? Like, why was I, it felt like I was really wanting to fix something that I had broken. And whether it should have been or not, it always felt like, yes, this was the right thing to do to fix this, and so that's what I did. And all then, deciding to go to nursing school and prayerfully deciding that, stepping into that, and those doors started to open, and they opened seamlessly. Nursing school was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. And I am not the sharpest tool in the shed. I am not, but I did it. But, I worked really hard. I said no to everything and everybody for all of those years I was in nursing school, because I don't know how these kids would come and, drink all night long, come in and take an exam and ace it. And I'd be like, what the hell? I was up all night studying, and I was certain that I was going to flunk. And, you just sometimes barely make it. And here, anyway, but that.
You said doors open seamlessly. Talk about that.
Well, it felt like, when I just entered into the building to talk to somebody about nursing school, you get that, you developed that insight, that God, nudge or whatever that is always there with us, but I had drowned it in alcohol and drowned it in self-pity or drowned it in self-centeredness. And then, trying, as that starts to come off of you, you can hear a little bit better. And so I was working on developing that relationship with God, and I was doing the things that were asked of me. I still probably thought I was always, no matter what, I've always been an emotional person. I've always been told, you're very emotional. You're very, not dramatic, but emotional. Like, even as a child, if I cried about something, and somebody told my mom about it, she'd be like, oh, well, she's just emotional. She's just, don't mind her. She's just emotional. And so that's kind of like, so I grew up thinking, maybe these emotions are not good, but it was hard to stop them. And then when I got sober, they felt like they were what sort of led me here and there. And like I had this emotional pull or whatever. But when I went and talked to somebody talked to the school, then, I applied, I got in, I got some grants, I got, the loan money, everything lined up. And my husband and I, we were split at the time, but we were, we still had our youngest daughter, so there's still interaction. And I think he probably saw the light in me light up. He saw me in a different way than he'd ever seen me before. And so that's what brought him back. And I thought, ooh, here we go. I'm doing it. I'm going to fix this, But I did hold my sobriety very seriously. And I knew that without that, I couldn't have anything. And then, life carries on, and I go to school and I become like class president, and I'm like, I don't know what y'all are thinking. Like it didn't really entail anything. It was just a title, but I wore it well. I mean, I was just like, I'm class president. I mean, like literally, I was like, I've never been president of anything.
Was that your first tattoo?
Yeah, that was my first. Yeah. So I mean, like, and then, they deemed me as class mom. It felt like I had like, I shared all these things with them and shared, some life experiences and stuff. And, during this whole time, Brittani, my oldest daughter, was struggling and with her own addiction. And, the program taught me also that we can't get anybody sober. And that was a hard one for me, because I knew that because I was her mom, if I could get some influence over her, and I had this answer, I had the answer. I mean, I've got the program, I'm doing it, that people would say, you be an example of being sober, be that light, just be that for her. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to take it a step further. I mean, it's like the person who is in the program and work in recovery, who can say, I can't get anybody sober, but I can let them see me. That's fine and dandy. But when you see your daughter drowning and suffering and hurting and in pain, and I was like desperate for her to see me, desperate.
How did you know that she had a problem? So you're sober now at this point, and you realize that your oldest daughter may have a problem.
And so it had happened prior to that when I was still drinking. So, when I was drinking, like we're talking about, through her high school years, and then right after school and everything, it escalated for her quickly. And we had gotten a call that she was, she's doing these things. And I remember this was probably about a year or two before I got sober. I remember so many times drinking so heavily because I wanted to just absolutely forget about what this could mean for her. She was on her own. Like, so she was living either with her dad or with a boyfriend or something. I can't remember exactly like her living, but she wasn't at home. So I did, like, she was grown, like she was 19. I didn't have the same access to her as I did, like, your younger kids or whatever. But I knew that I remember drowning myself in alcohol just drowning myself at times. And then I would like, try to buck up and go, okay, no, okay, here we go. We got to be mom. I've got to be stern. I've got to be, I got to get her attention. Something bad's going to happen. And then, she had gone to a rehab or two. And though right before I got sober, she went to, I think it was the second rehab. And I remember we were sitting there at the table and she was getting ready to go. Her dad was going to take her. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, she said, I love you. And she said, I am going to do everything I can. I'm going to do everything I can to try to, because I knew she hated the addiction. And you could see her struggle, but you could still see her try to smile through it and then be encouraging and like the silver lining kind of girl. She was always upbeat no matter what. And she said, but I think maybe you should get some help too, because I think you might have a problem with alcohol. And I was like, girl, no, I'm good. Let's just get you taken care of. And, so yeah, she had seen me, I'm sure, struggling with it. And, but I'll never forget that day when she took me by my face and she, kissed my forehead. She said, I really think that you should, maybe get some help. And I said, I just kind of, yeah, okay, let's just get you taken care of. And within 2 weeks, I was in rehab, and I was writing her letters, going, "Guess where I'm at?" And so through that, after I got out, we would go and see her in the rehab that she was in, and so that's where I'm working on my program. John, he and I, things aren't going great with us, and so we split up, and then I go to nursing school. And during this time, she decides that she's going to leave this rehab and she's going to go. She did a lot of geographical location changes, like I'm going to do this and we'll start over, and, similar, looking back, I kind of did the same thing. Relationship changes. Like, I'm just going to, do over, she was there for a while. I knew we would go and visit her. She was staying with a boyfriend, and they were running the dad's business a little bit. But when we would go visit her, I could tell that something was kind of off with her. And so during these, few years, watching her sort of battle in and out, she was always like, "I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay." But that mom radar goes off, and you just know. And if I'm praying for her every single day, and having to let go every day, I'm having to practice this program in all my affairs. And my biggest affair that I have going on that's heart-wrenching to me right now is her. And I'm praying for her every day, and I'm praying that, he'll take care of her as he takes care of me. And I remember through those years that I remember kind of making some deals with God. I'm like, God, if you just make her better, I'll do anything you want. I'll stay sober. I'll do all the things. It's like I'll be indebted forever. You have to save her. And, that's kind of a dangerous thing when we start making deals like that. And we start I started believing and expecting that nothing would happen to her, because I believed so strongly that if it did, that it would destroy me. And, that really kind of circles around about back to me. I don't want to suffer. I can't take any more suffering. And I just want everything to be okay. So we go plugging along, and, she ends up coming back to stay with her dad. And so she's in the same area where I am. And she meets this guy, and I'm not crazy about it. I'm concerned about it because they're using together, and find out she's pregnant. And then, fast forward, I'm like praying all the time, like, let this, baby be okay. Then she's like, Mom, I'm good. She has the baby. And within a couple of days, she decides she's getting sober. She gets sober. And that baby is beautiful. She's the most beautiful little girl you've ever seen. She looks like like it just like one of those little ceramic baby dolls. I mean, like she's just absolutely gorgeous, and she's healthy and she's good. Brittany gets sober, and during this time, I'm feeling like everything's kind of coming together. I feel like all the things are lining up. The nursing. I'm graduated. Got a job, cardiology. I love it. John and I are back, everything seems to be fine. And I just start, like how we talk about resting on our laurels. I mean, I don't do the dailies. I don't do the deep dive spiritual connection. My entire spirituality at this point is hyper focused on her and making sure she's okay. Is in every opportunity I'm giving her, offering AA, and it went from offering AA to like throwing it at her, like one, book at a time.
So how long had she been using at that point when she got sober? And was it mostly drugs or alcohol or combination?
It was mostly drugs. And at that point it had been off and on for, for almost 10 years. And, but when she had the baby, she was like, I want to be a good mom. And like, there's been some things that happened prior to that with another daughter, and, I'm not gonna get into all that, but she was tired of struggling. I watched her as she would go kind of in and out. And it was, she would kind of hide it. She didn't want any of us to see her in that struggle. But, your mama heart just knows. I mean, you can look at him and see. And I knew when the light was on too. And for that year, the light was coming on. And I remember, feeling like so thankful that, I was convinced that, somehow those prayers to God, we had all created this, that she was good. She was going to be okay. And, I remember a few times, talking to people, and they would be like, well, she really needs, in a program, and that, you really need to just, abstaining is not the same from what we have, from the addiction that we have. It's abstinence is not, it can only, last so long. And, but I was like, no, it's going to be okay. I feel like she's going to be okay. And it was, again, I can look back on it now and go, man, I was really trying to convince myself and validate and justify every single thing and believe. And it had more to do with not being able to believe that anything could happen to her and that I could survive it. It was versus I have faith in that whatever happens. I was I can look back now and see how I was setting myself up. Does that make sense? I mean, like, you set yourself, I had almost demanded and justified everything to go, okay, she's going to be okay because God's not going to let me down. Who thinks like that? Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah. And, but I was convinced that she was probably going to be okay. And, they moved away to Hot Springs or they were close by. We had just seen her in February. She had come down to surprise my husband at the time for his birthday, and it was great. And that was the last time we saw her live. And on March 17th, I got a call, and it was from my ex-husband. I know when he calls, it's something profound usually, and when he answered the phone, he said, Sam, I'm on my way to Hot Springs. I said, Brittany's overdosed, and I don't know anything. And I remember just completely, just in that moment, it's like something just fell out of me. It's like my guts just fell out of me. And so we get in the car, we go, and we get there, and mind you, I'm a nurse, so I'm thinking, okay. And my nurse, like all the way there, I'm in my nurse brain, like I understand that they've got her hooked up to all these things, and so in my nurse mind is like, okay, here's all the things that they're going to be doing, and when we walk in, but my mom and that that one had been praying, was like, oh God, please, 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 God, don't let anything happen to her, please. And like, so the nurse and me and the mom and me are just battling, and then you have the the recovery, the AA member in me that's like, cunning, baffling, powerful. We die of this disease every day. And I'm like, just all three just intertwined and battling. And we get there and we walk in, they tell me, as we're walking into the room, they tell me, we've got her hooked up to all these IVs, and they were giving her all the medicine to keep her blood pressure up, and they had her on a vent, and they had her on a cooling blanket, and this is where they cool them down to a cold temperature, and then they slowly warm them back up, and in hopes of getting some function back. And the words that they were using were words that I knew as a nurse, but they were also I was hearing them, but the mom was like, I've seen you bring her back. I've seen you do miracles. I've seen people's lives change, and this could be such an amazing story. And like, I'm just like, everything is like, this has got to, I just refuse to believe that this is not going to be okay. And when I walk into that room, I can see it's like she's just laying there, and she's like she's just resting. And when I go to touch her, I'm listening to what the nurse is saying. He's telling me all these things. And all I can think of is like, God, what's about to happen? Like I can, it's like I can foretell what's the possibility of what's about to happen. And I'm still like wanting to refuse to believe it could be so. And, so they tell me what they're doing. They're cooling her down. They're going to, do this overnight, and that in the morning they'll start to bring her back, warm her back up, and we'll see where we are. I knew it was bad. And so we decided to go ahead and go home, pack a bag, come back straight away. And so we are on our way back. And we get back to North Little Rock, and they call me and they say, Sam, you need to come back. She's failing on the vent, and she's not going to make it. And I remember that drive back, and all I could think of, I remember on the way down there calling my sponsor and just saying, what happened to her, and I remember she was very calm, and she just said, Sam, this is a deadly disease. And it's like not what I wanted to hear, but she didn't know what to say. And so we get there, and when we walk in, he says to me, I've got her dad, my husband, and her fiance. He was fiance at the time. And we're all sitting around her, and he's talking to me because I'm speaking that language, that nurse language. And somebody, when you walk into that situation in a critical care, like, you have to make a decision. And he said, we can do this. We can leave her like this, and we can let this go for as long as you want. But if you decide that you want to unhook her, give her something comfortable, and you can just stay with her for as long as it takes. And I knew that was the decision to make, but you had to say the words. You have to say the words.
How did you know that was the right decision? As a mom, I don't know.
Yeah, because her brain function, like all the testing had come back that there was no brain function, and that the fact that she was failing on 100% vent, it was just getting less and less that she was no longer going to be able to be viable. Like on that, she just wasn't going to make it. And it was just, but it was a drift, and not just, she's gone. And so I said, okay, we have to let her go. So I had to say the words, and, nobody in the room, the guys in the room, they didn't, they knew it was the right decision. But they just, none of them took their eyes off of her, and so we stepped out so that they could unhook her and do all of that. And when we went back in, the vent was gone. The drips were gone, and all that was left was just, the monitor. And I watched it as it, was beeping, and it's just the steady beep. And I remember just staring at her face and trying to memorize everything about her. And I remember, kissing her forehead and what that felt like, holding her hand and just rubbing her forearm. And it's like the only thing in that moment was the thought is that I think this may kill me. I think this really might kill me. And I honestly, it's almost like in that moment, I didn't even care. I wanted to just lie down and go with her. And something just sort of came over me, and all I knew to do was to pray. And I remember thinking my prayer was so bold and so loud. I thought, I wonder what they think out there at the nurse's station. I mean, like it was from my guts, and I just prayed that God would just send angels to welcome her into heaven. I didn't know what else to say. And I prayed that I would always remember this moment, that somebody could live because of this moment, that it would save somebody. And maybe at the time I was thinking, I hope it saves me, but I wasn't convinced that it would. But it's like people say, how do you do? I mean, like, you just have no choice. It's not something I wanted to do. It's like you have no choice until you get up enough of the momentum of being able to talk about it, share with other people, so that you feel like maybe I can live through this. Maybe I can. And, I remember that we sat there with her until the beeps, they stopped. And I honestly don't know. When I think back on it, I don't know how I walked away from her, because I feel like I could have stayed there forever. It's just that thing that you're like, the acceptance of, this is it. She's gone. And now the next thing is, how do we take care of the, funeral arrangements and all of those things? And I had nothing to prepare me for that. I had people that, that helped us along and were there for us, and family. And, but I remember thinking, this is the loneliest, in a room full of people, this is the loneliest I've ever felt. More lonely than when I was struggling with alcohol and feeling like that, that turmoil of every morning waking up and feeling like, that just that fear and that, that dread of the day. It was like this landed on me it's like, there's nothing worse than this. While it didn't make me want to drink, it made me, it just depleted my soul, it just depleted my soul. And, so it was, just a daily, the things that you have to take care of, the days after that. And every day led to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. And there were, like, for that first whole year, there were just so many things that I wasn't quite ready to deal with, or couldn't, I just cried all the time.
So you said, afterwards, what did your program look like? So the unthinkable has happened. The one thing that you said, if this ever happens, I absolutely cannot stay sober.
Yeah.
You made the deals. The deal didn't come through. It was broken. Something happened. What did your program look like right after that?
Well, I think for probably the first few months, it was just like trying to make it through the grief part of it. And staying, I didn't stay any closer to my sponsor. It was like grief, that pain, and then just stay recovered in it. Like it didn't, the grief and all of that was like what was moving. And it's like I was just pulling this heavy weight of recovery alongside it. And I knew that my spiritual connection, for me, I dove into like that needing God to get through this. And then, when you talk about the steps of grief, the 5 stages or whatever, those stages are like, they're not linear. They can kind of bounce around. And I remember having lots of, like, after the initial, the shock and all of that, I would have lots of moments where I was really angry at God and then feel really guilty about being angry at God. And then, I had a couple of friends that would be like, he's got big shoulders. He can handle it. You're human. And so I got real human with him and at times. And, and I think probably, how like, he had always kind of been like father figure type, that's the kind of the God of my understanding was like this father figure type. And it's almost like when you're in trouble or something and you yell at your dad or what, like if you ever yelled back at your dad or like threw a temper tantrum like a toddler would do, you throw this temper tantrum, but who's the first person you run to when you hurt? You go back to dad. And so I, tried to, just stay like in it, just everything about recovery and everything I learned about like my mental condition, my spiritual condition, my physical condition, like that, how they all intertwine and like, we're having a really rough day. How's your spiritual condition? Not great. That's probably why, that those kinds of things. I had one rough day after another, after another, after another. And it came to a point where I thought, okay, I've got to dig back into, this was probably about a year into it, because like that first year, everything is all the first, her first birthday, her first, Emily's birthday. I mean, like all, like, my son, like how everybody was dealing with it, all the first holidays. And then like the second year, it's sort of like those first wear off and you're like, you go back to like the reality of it is hit. Like, this is really, I mean, like, she's really never coming back, and like, I would just like wake up to that, just, out of the blue. It's like it would just hit you in the face. She's never coming back. And then there were also these times where, it would hurt so bad. I had to just like run it away. I would run. I would, I didn't eat, lost a lot of weight, all of that, but I would just like try to, binge watch something. I mean, it's like anything not to think about it, but it's, it's just one of those things where it's just always right there. And so, over time you learn to some of the acceptance. And, I knew that I needed to get back into my program. Like I felt like I needed to go back through the steps again. And, I am not an expert on any of this, like none of it. Somewhere along the way, something about this grief, it gave me this feeling of like everything. It's almost like, has everything been, it's hard to describe. It's like the grief is so forceful in your life that you're like, has everything else been a fraud? Has everything before it not been real? I mean, like, and I don't know if anybody that would be listening could maybe understand where I'm coming from, but it's like, it feels so unreal that you're like, what else is not real? What am I doing in my life that's real? Like everything, everything becomes so important, like moving forward. And I think I have to do more than just not drink. I mean, she was a person and she was a daughter and she was a mother and it's like the stigma that we have when it comes to addiction and drug addiction and alcoholism and, they died in their disease. Well, it's almost like it's unfortunate, but I hear it a lot that, it's almost like they asked for it. I mean, and not so obvious terms like that, but people can say some really cold things that don't understand what this disease is all about. And it's just another poor soul that just, they did it to themselves kind of. And, I just couldn't take that. I mean, I couldn't, it's like I just couldn't. And I knew that there were people out there hurting and that people were still in their addiction and still struggling because, maybe they were scared to come forward and maybe they were, scared to talk about it or scared to for their relapse or any of those things. And so I just started speaking about it and talking more about it. And it did become such a focus that, so many other of my relationships just, they just sort of dissolved around that. And I didn't put in the work, it's like I didn't put in the work into all those other relationships. This became my primary focus. And in the midst of that, I crumbled internally, externally. I made some, crazy decisions. I remember, I never had suicidal thoughts, but I remember thinking I just didn't want to be here. It's almost like reckless behavior. It just didn't quite matter. The worst thing that had ever happened. And so anything else it doesn't matter. And the truth is it does matter. Everything we do matters. And, everybody we influence matters. And, having to, that grief was, while it didn't leave me curled up in bed and like it does some, it gave me this drive, and I didn't know how I was driving, and I didn't drive. I recklessly drove for a while, but I feel like everything had to come to another complete stop. And that's what happened last year. I was like, everything, another situation where I am back at square one, and that I have to gain back me. I have to gain, or else anything that I do is going to not be valid, if that makes sense.
So Brittani died, and you talked about the reckless behavior and the suicidal thoughts. Were during that period of time, and then you just referenced last year, and we'll talk about that, and I know you'll share about that shortly, but during that period of time, were you talking with anyone? Did you go to therapy? Did you talk to a pastor at church? I mean, were you doing, who are you sharing this stuff with?
Yeah, I was trying to, initially jumped right into, I wanted all the books, I'm like an information gatherer, and I gather all these resources, and then I have this pile of resources and I don't know where to start. I just know I can't do nothing. Doing nothing feels like it's going to kill me. And so it's kind of like scrambling, treading water and scrambling, and, knowing that I'm so close to shore. It's but I don't know how to put my feet down and my arms. Nothing works. Nothing worked for me. As far as I couldn't, my thought processes and all of that.
It almost sounds like the exact same thing you described when you were drinking. Mm-hmm. Although you did not pick up a drink,
right?
You picked up this determination.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that it's the disease. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what you put in front of it.
Right.
Alcohol is what you put in front of it first.
Right.
But now you've just kind of gone back to old behaviors.
Yes.
You can
old
fix
behaviors,
it.
just I have to control this somehow. I have to, and so that's where gathering all these resources, going to grief, go to the grief therapist and stuff. And then it was at some point, the people in your life, they want to know when you're coming back. When do I get my wife back? When do I get, my friend back? When do I get, all of that? And I didn't know how to say it, but the answer is she's gone. I mean, she's gone. And I don't know who will emerge. But I would expose that, this person, was talking about just flailing. Like I was just like I was in water, and if you were coming to save me, I was taking you down with me. I mean, like that was my focus. And so I couldn't get off of it. And I knew that there was had to be a healthy way for me to share that story or somehow get through this grief with Brittani, and and how to share like recovery and overdose, and parents who struggle with kids who are struggling, and parents that were before me and that have come after me that have lost a child. I mean, like so many. And so I've found in the Hope movement, that was it's an organization for families who have lost loved ones to overdose. So I mean, like just doing that work, being open and honest, transparent, and available to people that need it. But for me personally, going through the grief therapy, it seemed like it just lacked substance. Like, okay, yeah, 5 stages, got it, check, next. Now, I mean, like, now what? Now it was like always like, no, what now? What now? What now? Nothing was relieving this long suffering, this pain that was like I couldn't get close enough to, but I could to touch it, to heal it. I mean, it's like it was just on me and in me. And over the years, I've learned that it's like this weighted vest that you have to learn. You let go of it like a pebble at a time, and over time, you come to have to accept certain things. And so when you let out, like I had to be able to feel all my emotions. I mean, I didn't want anything covering it up, but I knew that the more I walked through this, the explosion that I felt was hurting other people, so it's like I had moments where I knew I was being very helpful and loving and helping somebody. And I also knew those moments where I was like, I'm about to hurt you, and like not intentionally, but just emotionally. I can't be what you need me to be. I wish I could, but I can't. And the drawback from that is the guilt, the shame, all of that, and that was probably like some of the hardest things to experience, because like there was no drink to cover that up. There's nothing to cover it up.
But you had the Hope movement. Is that what you said? What is that?
Yeah, so that's an organization that we help families with who have gone through this, the Overdose Awareness Day that we have in August. And those are just events to make people aware and talk about the stigma of overdose and the stigma of addiction and those sorts of things. I mean, those are things that you can do outwardly that are helpful. And it wasn't until I walked into Bridging the Gap a year and a half ago that when I found that home group and was able to find got a new sponsor, and the way that, I walked in there carrying all of this stuff. And it was pain and stuff and things that I'd done to myself. I mean, like I caused a lot of pain myself. I mean, there's things that happen to us that we have zero control over, and there are things that we do that cause pain that that ultimately came from our decisions. And it was so mixed up in this big pile of just torment that I didn't know how to break it apart. But when I walked in, that day and started to meet all of you and would, I didn't even know what to say. It's because it's like, how'd you get here? I didn't even know what to say, because I walked in with the look, I am certain of somebody who was a brand newcomer, and here I was, just celebrated 12 years last month or last week or whatever. But I had that feeling of a newcomer. I knew that I walked in feeling like the smartest person because I knew nothing. Like I went back to nothing. I knew nothing. And it was so hard to not carry some of the ways and that I did things before the masks that I put on to try and fix situations and try to fix, other people or fix myself or be what everybody needed me to be. And here I was just like, I just dumped all that on y'all and was just like, I don't know what to do with any of this. And, every day since that I go there, it's like, you go back in and they don't really care exactly the details of your life. They just want to walk you through it. And it was like this new feeling of, again, maybe I can be okay. Maybe I'm going to be okay. Maybe I can get through this. And maybe, these people are here to help me and I don't have to wear any mask for them. And like even this tonight is, it's funny because those masks get really heavy, but they're secure. They were my security, I knew that if I was this kind of friend, that, this is what I could count on. If I was this kind of wife, this may be what I could count on. If this kind of person, whatever. And all of that just disappeared. I mean, like, didn't disappear. It's like it blew up, it felt like, when, if you mine like a coal miners or whatever, and they mine all the coal and then you get everything stripped out of it. And then the next thing you're like, okay, so now what? And then they intentionally go and just put dynamite in and they blow it up and they start gathering again. It's like I'd stuck dynamite in my life and blew it up and I hate the pain that I know that I've caused people. Or that, that they just don't know how to take me. They don't understand why I'm not there. They don't understand any of it. And I didn't understand it myself. I just knew that I had to break away and I had to do this. And I didn't know what this was. And so it's really hard to explain to somebody, people want answers. We always want, I want answers. I want details. I want, like, tell me how this is going to go. Tell me why this is happening. I didn't have any of those answers. I still don't, but I can see the fruits of like where I've been in like the last year. I can see where not picking up another relationship, not picking up another, and it's, all of it's kind of all been a struggle, but, Jeremy taught me how to, I got a drill bit because I just knew that I needed one. I mean, like, you living alone, you got to have a drill bit for some reason. And I didn't know how to work the damn thing. And I took it to the meeting when I was like, how do you change the drill bit? And he didn't laugh at me. He didn't judge me. He just said, okay, Sam, here we go. Like, and he showed me and I was like, I'll never get this. I mean, like, it's a drill bit. And it's like, just the simplest things, like the most basic things. I want my life to be like to be as basic as it can be, to subtract all the things that not that I don't need or want, just to subtract the things that keep me from doing and hearing what God wants me to do next. Because, when I'm mad at him, I'm probably not going to take his suggestions. When I'm loud and throwing a fit, I can't hear through that. If I'm hurting and I want my way, I'm going to try to negotiate that, so how still can I get? How quiet can I get so that I can start to learn to trust him again? I mean, because I trust, this higher power, as I choose to call God. I know, I trust, I believe all of those things. But there's this hard stop that developed there. And I have this sponsor now who, she's so patient with me. And, I'm like the slow variety of getting, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And I do it really quickly. I think last time when I did all this quickly, I wanted results. I was looking for results. I saw those results, and good or bad. It doesn't matter, but I think that I rushed through and I just hyper focused on the things that I wanted results for, This time I knew I had to dig as deep as I've ever dug in my time. There was no holds barred. You have to dig and you have to share this stuff with somebody And she, she never batted an eye. She sat there with me for 5 hours. And every single thing that, what was your part? That she did it. And I knew it was with love, but it had to be with truth. And I needed to hear all that. And so I had to sit in that for a long time. And I'm still kind of sitting in some of it, and it's okay. It's okay for me to sit in that. And I don't know, what happens next. But I know like some of the things not to do again. And it's like that subtraction I talked about. Subtract those ideas in your head that this is how your life has to go. Stop thinking that you have to have this 5-year plan because you're running out of time or you're running out of energy. How long can you run? Can you run that 100 miles next year? I don't know. And, I don't know if I can or not. I'd like to think that I'll be able to at least be willing to do all the work. And I was this time, but I knew it wasn't ready. And my friend told me, I don't think you're ready. I don't think you're quite ready. And I believed him. But again, I was like, but are you sure? Like, is there, and, you can't, if you're not, you're not. If you can't do something, you can't do it. Did you try? Is it something you really need to do? Like, I don't have to do all the things and see where I fail. I can stop and figure out where do I go from here. And if I fail, I fail. And if I do it, I do it. I mean, like, my validation can't come from anybody else anymore. It can't come from, being a savior, being Brittany's savior. I mean, it can't come from trying to get my kids or whatever to do what I want them to do. I mean, like, I'm very proud of them. And I know that they're doing the best with what they have. And I want to be solid for them, but I can't suggest things all I want, but I love them right where they are. And I loved Brittany right where she was. I mean, I think that's why we had such a close relationship, is because she knew that I knew how she felt when she came to me and she said, Mama, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, I know, baby. I know. And you don't have to, but I know how hard it is, and just to love them right where they are.
So you talked about your other children. How did they, what happened with them? How did they handle the passing of their sister? And what's the relationship with them like with you now?
Well, sorry. Well, I think, they deal with it different. My son, he's very practical, and he loved her, and, he's not super he's emotional about it in his own way. He deals with it in his own way. I don't have to insist that he show me those emotions. And there was a time that I felt I need to see how you're doing. Like, I need to visually see. And, I think for him, one of the first things he did is like, she loved owls, and he went and got a tattoo on his shoulder and had her name that was her handwriting signature. For me, that tells me like he wants to honor her with something that she loved. He doesn't have to repeatedly say all the time, like he doesn't grieve like I grieve, And so he just honored her that way, For my youngest one, it was really, really hard for her. Like, that was her big sister. And it's funny because they were 8 years apart, but my youngest one was more like the big sister. And Brittany used to say, I wish I could be like Emily when I grew up. She would say that just kind of jokingly, because my youngest she is a beautiful soul. Like, she's bold, and she is like, she says what she's a lot like me. I mean, she's more like me than I could ever have imagined. When I see it now. But she came to me and she's like, Mom, I can't stay here. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, I can't live here. This girl, she was 20 years old. She had gone and gotten online and decided that she just looked up this like cooljobs.com, like seasonal jobs. I mean, can you believe they even have something like that? So I had never heard of anything like this ever. So she tells me, I got on this cooljobs.com, and I've got a couple interviews. One of them's a ranch, and then one of them is in Colorado. It's a ski resort. And I was like, oh, come on, Emily. You've got it. I'm like, girl, I said, those are like, that's like some mafia, Russian mafia. You're going to be trafficked. That's a sex trafficking ring. No, my God. Look. And I'm like, you can't. And she's like, no, Mom, really? And I was like, how stupid. That was so dumb. And like, sure enough, I mean, she tells me she's got this interview. And then here, after losing Brittany, I wanted desperately to have like my hands on them, like know exactly where they were at all times. And so that next big step of faith of going, okay, I've got to let her go, let her experience whatever it is she needs to experience. You know, she's the one that would miss her flight and just hang out in, you know, Denver or wherever, like, you know, until the next flight came and not think anything about it. And I'd be like, just terrorized thinking that somebody's going to kidnap her. And then I think she's got such a mouth on her. She would fight and claw and scratch like nobody, they'd bring her back. But, or she'd talk her way out of it, convince them that they had the wrong girl. But she did it. She went out there and she's made a life of herself for herself. And she, you know, they really did want this Arkansas girl out there. You know, she had a ski instructor, like for little kids. Like she did some of that. They have a university out there. Now she's got a new job there. She's baking. She's like one of the bakers that like she, you know, the bakes the, you know, stuff for the college kids and stuff. And she loves it. And, you know, last couple weeks ago, went to Colorado and watched her get married. I mean, to this fabulous guy who takes care of her and loves her in such a way that is the most beautiful. It's just so amazing when you witness your child being loved properly. And, you know, and it's like all you wish for is for them to have, you know, a happy life. And, you know, it was just a beautiful thing to go out there and to watch her get married to this guy who's got a great family. They live in a beautiful place. I get to go often. And, you know, when we talk about it and think about it, you know, Brittany was there, but, you know, they had a nice little memorial, but it was about Emily. It was about Emily and Rob's day. It was their wedding day. And, you know, when I think about the fact that she never would have gone, she never would have left if Brittany was still here. And I think about, you know, the moments when I was praying over, I mean, like the beauty for ashes, that's always what I had prayed that. And like, that was kind of the verse that I would always go to for her, was like, you know, God would create this beauty for ashes. And in her death, what really, it was what I picked to put on her grave marker was that verse. But I think about that, it just sticks out, beauty for ashes. And so, you know, that, you know, Emily got to be the beauty for those ashes. I mean, like, her life is unfolding in such a beautiful way. And so we never know, like in that moment, and I thought, I'll never be able to make it. I'll never be able to survive this. You just have to. You know, just like with sobriety, it's, you know, a day at a time, an hour at a time. You know, you stay in, you know, in contact in community the best you can, never isolate, like all of those things. I knew all those things about recovery, but, you know, the grief took me to places that, you know, kind of took me to similar, but not exactly the same as what my drinking did. And, you know, to come back into the rooms now and be able to go, okay, I made a pretty, you know, there's a pretty big mess I got going on here in my life, but we can make, you know, we can do this. We, you know, start weeding out all the things that don't serve you, you know, the subtraction again. And, you know, we, instead of trying to create some kind of like you know, get rid of character defects or try to create, character assets or whatever, you know, when you strip away all of those things that you're not, you're left with what God gave you, what God planted in you that is in all of us. And that's the thing that when I talk to the guys at Serenity Park or whatever, and I, you know, when they get to that place, they're like, this is maybe not for me. And I'm like, you just don't know. I said, if you stay here long enough and see, you know, you're worth it. First of all, if you stay here long enough, imagine all the things that you can let go of, subtract out of your life, and see what you're left with, because that hole that's burning inside you is like, that's meant for that place with your higher power, with your God of your understanding, where you can work toward getting your life back. And you filling it with relationships, or you're filling it with the drugs or anger or whatever it is you're filling it with. Start subtracting all those things and see what you have left. You're worth it. And that's the one thing that I watched Brittani do over and over again, that she never quite believed it about herself. But she always encouraged it for other people. And I think if any of those people got this, when I encourage them, and I think about Brittani, how much she encouraged other people, and how if we just believe that about ourselves, and know that if we just stick with it just a little bit longer, we're not guaranteed that something bad is not going to happen in our life. But we're guaranteed that if, I know if I stay in that room, if I stay in my home group, then I'm always going to have you guys. I'm always going to have people watching over me and able to see my blind spots. And if I'm being open and honest, you can, and not with a mask, and you can see me clearly, you'll be able to see them too. And I'll know that they're there because I'm not hiding anymore. And there's a lot, I feel like there's a lot to hide from. But when we walk through this and people start loving you in spite of it, that's when you know that you're like, these are my people and they're going to love me no matter what. I don't have to cover this. I don't have to pretend like it's not happening. I don't have to pretend like it doesn't hurt. I don't have to pretend like I'm not being a jerk. It goes both ways. And then you get caught on it. And if I am growing in this thing that I hope to be growing for, until I see Brittani again, that I'm able to hear that. I have to be able to hear it and receive it with goodwill and accept it. Maybe you have it wrong, maybe you don't, but maybe you don't have it wrong, And I used to always be so inclined to think you've all got it all wrong, until something like this. It just leaves you just completely raw and naked in front of your whole insides, or just everything about your life is exposed. And I didn't know what to do with it. But I'm learning that there is nothing to do with it. It is a part of me. It's weaved in me. I can't give this to anybody, I can't give all it's part of me, and it can become beauty for ashes. It can become something that's useful and important and simple and helpful. It doesn't always have to be so dark, and if I keep letting people see the real me that's becoming, then there's no place for that. The darkness, there's, no place for it to stay. That light is just going to keep shining on. And, I've heard it said that, it's not so much eliminating the darkness, but it's increasing the light that shines in us. We all have something. We all have a thing. We all have something. We all have stuff that we're going to go through, we've been through. But to shine that light on it and make it a useful part of our life, maybe that's the goal. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I really don't. And that's when you said, what are my expectations? I have zero expectations. Because if I start thinking that I know what's supposed to happen and I start expecting those things to happen, then that's where I'm going to get into trouble. And so we take it as it comes, day by day, the good, the bad, all the ugly, and the great and the beautiful. And, after Colorado, after she got married, I got to spend some time there, and I got to walk up and down that mountain by myself. And it was just me and nature. And it was the most spiritual experience I've had in a very long time. And it just made me feel like I could breathe. And that's what I want. I want to be able to breathe through all of this and to live through all of this. And, get through all of this. And
Yeah. So you mentioned you always went from person to person, validation. And the Sam that I know is not with anyone.
No.
I mean, you're you. What does that feel like? How have you grown through that? And
well, it's, it's good. It's like, I like my space. I like if I don't know what to do with myself for the day, I don't have to do anything with myself. You know what I mean? I don't have to do anything. Or if I wanted to go, go on a day trip or whatever by myself, I'm not scared. I've never been scared to be by myself, but I've been scared to be able to witness my aloneness. Like, I'm not scared of people. I'm not scared of, I'm not scared somebody's going to break in my house and all that kind of stuff. My fears are internal. Like, what's going to happen when I see the real me? What happens when I see like the real me? What does she look like? What are her goals? What does she have goals? Does she think she should have goals? I mean, it really is. It gets so, I can make things so complex, and I really try to keep that simple, that the more I am alone, I'm not alone. The more I am, by myself, I'm not alone. And I value those moments where I get to just be, and learning how to be by myself, or just learning how to be in a moment, being still in a moment. It's really been hard for me, apparently, for all these years, because I, constantly, trying to do something or put something in front of it, or, do this, go after something or whatever, to try to avoid in those moments. And I've got a lot of growing to do, obviously. I mean, I've got a lot, but I have this willingness, feel like I have this willingness to do more, like adventurous type stuff, like to do more, be more in a simpler way, not with like big, I mean, like, I'm simple girl. I mean, like, I don't need, a lot of stuff. I just want to be in nature and just value like life, and not take it for granted, and not try to fill it up with things that don't belong. And so the best way I know, because I'm like, I'll keep scrambling. I'll like, let's keep filling it up with this person or that person or this thing or that thing or what it. And it's like, just stop. Just let everything settle. Let the rubble settle. And then, you can start digging out and seeing where you end up.
One more question, but I want to share some things about you before we finish up. But I want to ask one question. And this will be the last question I ask. So if there is a family member out there listening to this, you talked about the Hope movement. Mm-hmm. Where can they find that? And are there other resources that you know of that they can use?
Well, Hope Movement Coalition there's a Facebook and there's a website, and it's www.hopemovement. Oh gosh. I think Stacy would probably kill me for not having this on.
Hey, don't worry. We'll find that, and I'll put it on the show notes.
But it's for people who need a resource. We help families who it's hopemovementcoalition.com. But we have a Facebook page and that sort of thing, and like I'm a part of, I'm always available as a resource, but I didn't, we had a mama who, a couple of moms that built this from kind of like, that space of like, what do I do? There's no place for moms to, or families to go when this happens. And, we're starting to have a whole lot more awareness. The stigma, there's still always going to be the stigma. There's still like a lot of action for that, moving toward that, trying to eliminate some of that. But, we have victory stories, and we have stories of people who lose that battle. And it's like that with every single thing. But those people are still people. They still have families. They still have struggles. And so I think we just want to help anybody who is if they don't know where to go, I mean, it's a starting point. And, I think that there are a lot more resources out there. Nobody has to struggle in silence. But sometimes we do because we just don't know how to take that first step. And, we want to have more resources available for recovery than we do resources available for moms who have to figure out how to bury their child. Then families who have, grandparents that are having to raise children that were their grandchildren. Those sort of things. Like if we can get to a place where we can tip that scale back to where we can get more recovery instead of, what do we do with this? How do we help this family who's lost somebody? It's the ripple effect is we're into generations now of the ripple effect of, losing people to addiction and, the kids that are falling behind it and the kids that are being raised by grandparents are being raised, without their parent. We're very fortunate. Her girls are raised by their dads and they are doing very well. They get to see each other. We get time. I mean, like we have access to them. And I mean, like, but it doesn't work out like that very often. And I think like we're probably maybe a rare case. And you can imagine like all of the struggle, the family struggles, the dynamics, everything that happens when, weddings and funerals, and all of the, and then you top it off with addiction, like all of the ripple effects of all of that, what families deal with. It's, it's overwhelming sometimes. And I'm sure. And so we just want to be there to help and direct and love, mostly just to let them know that we're not alone. And that was the one thing that I had to be reminded that I'm not alone through this, because it is the loneliest I've ever felt. And so I don't think that this aloneness that I experience now is not from isolation. It's not from hiding. It is from simplifying my life and trying to redirect my life into the most meaningful parts of it that are left. And, honestly, all the bullshit can just be subtracted away. And not to say that I'm not talking about people and relationships. I'm talking about the mindset that makes you think that I have to be all these certain things. I just have to be me and be in that moment. And let everything else kind of work itself out.
Well said. Jen? I think Shannon heard you say something along the lines of you're looking for your next adventure or you're ready for your next adventure or something like that. So I think Shannon ought to take you skydiving.
Heck yeah.
Wait, does Shannon want to go skydiving?
Tell him about it, Shannon.
I don't want to go back. Once was good.
Once was good.
Oh,
cool.
I'll do it with y'all.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, no, I'm
I'd
sorry.
do it.
All right.
I would
Sure.
do it for sure.
I don't even know if I can talk without crying. Okay, but let me tell you, when you said that about your mom, one of the first times I had real interaction with Sam is we loaded her up. I met her at a run, a 5K. We walked. She ran like she was done forever before we were. I was like, wow, this girl runs. And then she needed somebody to help move her. And so we're like, yeah, we'll help you. We're not doing anything. And we go to her house, we load her up, and here's this little girl, and she jumps in the back of this rider truck, and she gives me this look like, here we go. And off she drives. I'm thinking, that is a cool chick. Look at her and that big old truck. I'd have been pooping on myself. And here she is.
Yeah.
And come to find out, she was scared to death too.
I was like, are you really going to let me take this truck? And he's like, yeah. And so I'm like, oh, you don't want to know if I can drive it? I mean, like, and I said, doesn't have a backup camera. And he's like, yeah, that's why I gave you plenty of room. Just back her on up. You'll be fine. And I was like, holy crap. Like, and then when I got behind that thing, I was like, I'm a big girl. I'm a big girl now. It's official. I'm driving a U-Haul truck.
Your mom would be proud of you.
She'd be very proud of me. But, yeah.
I have seen you, I have just seen you share your alcoholism, your struggle with your daughter, her addiction. I have seen you walk up to people and just start talking to them in ways that I could never have the guts to do. And I think, and I know that came from Brittani. I know that she walks with you every day.
Yeah.
And I know that alone, one of you could not have really helped that many people. But I absolutely know that together, you and her do miracles. And that's the plan all along.
Yeah.
And I've told you this before. You got the hard part.
Yeah.
You and her had to decide who got the easy part and who got the hard part. And Mama, you are crushing the hard part, though. You are really, you're inspiring. I absolutely just love you and every part of you. And I just think you're making her so proud.
I hope so.
I just love you.
I love you too.
And I'm going to keep on and having adventures with you because this was just way too much fun.
Yes.
It sounds like a skydiving girl trip.
Yes.
I'll skydive.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll
Jeremy
do
and
it.
I'll drive y'all out there.
Yeah.
We'll watch you scream 4,000 feet.
Bingo.
The screen.
Yeah, thoughts.
Yeah, I've got some things that I want to share. You talked about, I remember whenever you walked in the room, and I remember seeing you come in. I'm going to cry because I cry all the time now. So, and you could see the pain on your face when you walked in the room. And I remember sitting there. And then I distinctly remember, and I can't tell you the words that you said, but I distinctly remember it was about a month after you had been coming in to the meeting. And you said, this is the first time I've ever shared in this meeting. And you shared about that pain and about that loneliness and what you said earlier about resting on your laurels. And to be able to have just sat from afar and watched you grow over the last year and go from where you were to where you're at now is a testament to you, your faith, your God, and your program that you work. You have a heart for service, a love for others. You show it in your life every time I see you, how much you care for other people. And I have watched you do things that are extremely hard, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I love you.
I love you too. And I mean, honestly, all of that is because of you guys. I mean, like, you give me this, like, feeling that I can do it. You know, I mean, like, I feel like accepted and loved, and I feel like you give me this safety net, this place where even if I fall or fail, I'm going to be caught, you know. And the first time we went to that 5K, that it was the Shamrock,
The Adam Brown 5K Shamrock Run.
yeah, and it fell on that date of Brittany's death. And so I hate St. Patrick's Day for lots of reasons. That's the reason I hate it. And I was like, I just don't know if I just, that day is always reserved for, like, I don't know what can happen to me on those days. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to cry, I'll cry. And it's usually just, I don't do anything always specific. But he said, you know, and I'd read the book, and he said, just come do it with us and do something different, you know, try something different. And it was like, it was a very suggestive, but like, you can do this, like, you know, tone to it. And I went and we had such a good time. And I remember, as soon as I crossed the finish line, I heard, "Is there a nurse?" And I was like, "Yes," so I ran, and it was the first time that I remember in a while that I was able to, like, this girl just fallen out. She just had run too hard, too fast, and eaten, and I'm like, she was fine, but it's just like, it was like, it put me, it convinced, he showed me that I could go and show up for something different, even on that day, and do something different that would still, help somebody or help myself or honor Brittany, or, it doesn't always have to look a certain way. And that's that part of, like, learning to, I got so hard just clenching that grief, and, like, I was going to do it my way, like somehow my way. And, over this past year, it's like, I've let it go a little bit. I don't have such a tight grip on it, and I can be shown and suggested, different things that I could do or try or be, or how to be involved. They've taught me how to, be of service, and how much service work, how important it is to our recovery. I mean, like, it's more than just like, patting somebody on the back and going, "Hey, keep coming back." It's just like, it's like putting yourself aside and trying to do something for the whole, for, like, for AA, and for, for people who are still suffering, and they've taught me how to do it. They're a service oriented group, and it's like, if you go and you show up and you're serious about it, you're gonna be some kind of rep. You're gonna some kind of service, some kind of something, and
Amen.
So, and I love doing it, and it really is. It's like that other piece that was missing. And I always say, if I'm not here on these 2 nights, then put out a search warrant, because if I haven't told you that I'm not going to be here, something's wrong. Because that's how important it is to me. But it's also where I get to fellowship and be with my people. And I have to have that. I have to have that, like I have air, oxygen. I really do. And, I never say never, that I'll never rest on my laurels again, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that if I try to, or I head down that direction, these people know me well enough to know that something's not right. They can see those blind spots, and you have to be able to let people see you, all of you, for them to be able to be aware enough for that to happen. So I'm so thankful that I landed where I did. I was introduced to this group by, another friend, and he said, this is a solid group, and this is a great group, and I think you'll really love it here. And I have, and I never want to go anywhere else. I found my home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sam, you blessed me, man. Again, known you such a short time. Your message is really powerful. You said a couple things that, kind of resonate with me. You said, let it go one petal at a time. I mean, it's obviously poetic, but it's profound too. You said, I had to write it down. The more I am alone, I am not alone. Wow. Another rather poetic line. I don't do poetry, just so we make that clear.
Yeah.
Of all the questions I had here, I think I think they're completely irrelevant. Just your experience, strength, and hope. When we think of sobriety, we're just kind of hoping that poor sucker out there will, get a grip on the program.
Yeah.
And then, and we've heard it, gosh, this group here, we've been around a while. So, we hear about when we, set the alcohol aside or the drugs aside, then we got to start dealing with the mask that you talked about, the discovery, who am I? And I've heard so many people say that's worse than getting rid of the alcohol. But the difference is now, you've got your like your tribe, your group, right? And so they're there for you, and they get, because you choose now to be transparent and genuine, and you open that, what we say in the Army or Marines, flak jacket, which is exposing our hearts, our inner selves. Well, then you build friendships with other people that are very transparent, and then together you guys just get mighty, because what we don't see coming are the griefs. And because you were sober, you were able to make it through that. And then because of your tribe, you were able to get through something that was even more difficult than giving up drinking. I mean, your message is just amazing. So I'm blessed that you took the time to come onto our little fledgling show and share that, and you said so many good things to people. What I'm really grateful for, and Jeremy captured that, let's talk about those resources. And I'm glad you did that, because I'll make sure those are in the show notes. And of course, it goes without saying that I'm going to ask this, but I hope that you would come back on the show with us again. I know that Sherry's looking to do some things in the future, and I would, really be glad if I could do like I did tonight, just kind of pull back and let you ladies just kind of chat. I know people very, very personal to me in my life that I'm going to ask them to listen to your show because of the experiences of grief that we've had in our own families. And wow, you were awesome for that.
Yeah. It's definitely not a linear, you just have to be ready for the mess. I mean, you have to accept the mess. I mean, that's the thing, is that none of this, there's no way to put a pretty bow on any of this. And it's okay. I mean, I hate it at times, but it's okay. I mean, this is it. This is what you're served. And so this is how you make it the best you can. But I've made a mess multiple times through it. It's just one big messy thing. And then you've got to, you're constantly having to tweak it all. And, so I just never want anybody to think that, that it's this is what I did. This is how, that it's some simple. I don't ever want anybody to think maybe they could do it, but I never could, because that's what I thought. I thought, I've seen people that have lost it. I can't do that. The thing is that when you're in whatever it is that you're in, it is a moment at a time. And it is like a matter of sticking close to some tribe, or like somebody who can walk through it with you and never letting go. And so all these things are possible, and it doesn't mean that you'll ever do any of it, perfect and great. But at the end of the day, if I say that I, didn't hurt anybody today, that's a step in the right direction. Everything I learned that with Stacy, or with my sponsor, that everything prior to what I shared with her, that's in the past. That's not who you are, and that's what you did, and that helps give me the motivation to step into tomorrow without yesterday's mistakes. And that's hard to do when they're deep and they've wounded people and they've wounded you. And so it's possible. It's just not easy every day. And so I always want to say that was profound for me, is that when you walk into the next day, everything that was yesterday is yesterday. And the things that you can learn from that, you take into tomorrow. You don't have to, I don't have to carry all that anymore.
That's right.
I don't have to carry that pain anymore. And I can, if I want to cry about it and I sit in it and I can, let it bubble up, that's okay. That's healthy. What's not healthy is that I carry that into tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So there's it's just lots of moving parts, and sometimes you just have to hang on, buckle up and hang on and do the best you can with, and, reach out for help. When you're that last little bit, you're hanging on by your fingernails, reach out for the person that's nearest to you without drowning them, of course. Of course. Of course.
Well, all right. Well, Team BS, actually, Shannon, glad you could join us tonight. I'm glad Jeremy invited you. It's kind of funny. It's my wife, and I didn't know she was going to be on the show until Shannon told me. I was like, that's awesome. So, Sherry, Jeremy, as always, it's a blessing to have you guys around. I'm looking forward, Sherry, to running the equipment for your show here that's forthcoming. Team Jeremy's show, I think, is released Friday. So this show, of course, will come out after that. Your show would have already been released. And, of course, Thursday night, we're doing you're doing your debut hosting, Jeremy, for modalities in recovery. So I'm looking forward to that. We got the tribe coming over for that. In fact, while we were talking earlier, before the show started, I said, who else is coming? You said Mark, and he pinged right then. I was like, wow, that's funny. What time? His ears must be burning. All right, so, hey, folks, what say you on today's show? Leave your thoughts and comments on shoutoutfromthepit.com. And remember, if you want to feel good about yourself, go out and do something for someone else. And finally, as always, and as Samantha so eloquently put it, you are not alone. And if no one's told you they love you today, we love you. Hey, man, God bless you. Have an outstanding American day. This is Bob the Old Rucker saying peace out.